She was arrested at the airport at the end of a holiday 6 years ago, then convicted of plotting to overthrow Iran's clerical government. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has endured many false dawns when it comes to her release, but today she was given back her British passport.
We should say as little as possible until, unless and until the thing is actually concluded. And everybody wants Nazanin home. We've been working on that for a long, long time. I do not want to do anything to interrupt the conversations right now.
Last year, the aid worker's husband, Richard, went on a 3-week hunger strike in an attempt to spur British officials into taking further action. He's not publicly commented today, though his sister says the news is the best in 6 years.
When I first heard it this morning, really excited, it felt like it's the start of the end. I think as the day's gone on and we're sort of processing it more, I think that the cynicism from our family kicks in. We've been here before, we've had many moments where it felt like the situation was about to be resolved, but this is the closest we've got to her getting home. You know, her passport coming back is a big sign that the Iranians are ready to release her.
These British tanks, sold to Iran in the 1970s, may be one key to her release.
They're part of a series of arms deals with Iran that could eventually earn Britain more than £5,000 million over the next few years.
A huge delivery was cancelled after the Iranian Revolution, and the current Defence Secretary has long argued the Iranians should get their money back.
We've chosen still not to return the equivalent of the £450 million that they paid us. I am here to urge that once and for all that we honour the debt, and it's to be dealt with within the regime.
Last month, the Prime Minister confirmed that ministers were working on settling that debt. Another major hurdle has been rekindling the Iran nuclear deal. The Russians were talking to the Iranians about it this morning, after threatening to block a new agreement as payback for Western sanctions over Ukraine, though today the Russians denied that.
We have a great perspective, in particular including the fact of being on the home straight with the agreement of the plan of the revival of the Iran nuclear deal.
Any breakdown in those talks could jeopardize this aid workers' release.
I do think all of the parties would like to get this 11-month negotiation, bring it to a conclusion. And so there could be quite a degree of last-minute diplomatic activity that pushes things over the line.
Zaghari-Ratcliffe's family say she's at home in Iran, trying to work out whether her freedom really is any closer, though for now still forbidden from leaving.
Well, earlier I spoke to the US Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, who's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I asked him about the news surrounding the Iran nuclear deal and Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, but I began by asking him whether America is doing enough when it comes to sanctioning Russia over the war in Ukraine.
Well, I think the president has been remarkable in his ability to keep the transatlantic alliance, the United States and Europe, together, and to bring in other countries around the world to deal a devastating blow to Putin and his economy. There's an unprecedented array of weapons that are being provided to the Ukrainians. There are obviously some things that we cannot do because it would drag the United States into a direct confrontation with Russia, amongst those a no-fly zone. But I think a big part of the story as to why Ukraine has been able to defend itself so ably has been the long-term partnership of the United States and Ukraine, and the short-term surge of help that has come from the United States and our allies.
Right, but even when it comes to economic sanctions, Ukraine is asking you to go much further.
Obviously, there's much more integration between the Russian economy and the European economy. We have stopped our oil purchases and our gas purchases from Russia. Europe has not done that yet. So we want to stay tight with Europe. We don't want to allow Putin to break us from each other. But when it comes to the next set of sanctions, we just have to recognize that the integration of the Russian economy and the European economy probably means that decisions made in European capitals have an even bigger impact than decisions made in our capital.
Very similar sanctions have been in place against Iran for years, and they haven't delivered any kind of regime change there. I
mean, I would argue that it's a bit of apples and oranges. This is a much broader array of countries. The sanctions are very different in that they are often targeted at individuals who are close to Putin and the defense sector itself. What those sanctions did do in Iran was fundamentally change their behavior and decision making. They decided to come to the table and make significant concessions on their nuclear program because of those sanctions. And so actually, to me, the sanctions that we applied against Iran are evidence that they actually can alter domestic decision making. Obviously, it can't happen fast enough in Russia, but the combination of the success of the defense of Ukraine by the Ukrainian military and the international sanctions, we hope will have a similar and perhaps even bigger effect on the decisions that are made in the Kremlin.
Do you think, strangely, Iran is now an opportunity to change the geopolitics? I mean, bringing Iran back into some sort of nuclear deal, which also involved Russia and China, remember, could be a big opportunity internationally, couldn't it?
I just think there's no other choice. Right now, Iran is on the doorstep of a nuclear weapon. They are weeks away from having enough material in order to make a bomb, and that has to be a non-starter for the United States and our allies in Europe. That not only would that mean that Iran is a nuclear weapons power, but that also would set off a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. The Saudis, the Emiratis, the Turks would all rush to pursue nuclear weapons as well. That is a disaster for global security. So whether or not it's a sort of specific political or diplomatic opportunity in the context of the crisis in Ukraine, we just have to say to ourselves, if there's a good deal on the table, let's take it. Let's not let American politics and the pushback that we know will come from Republicans stop us from saving the planet from a nuclear-armed Iran.
Yesterday, the United States said it believes China is going to cooperate with Russian requests regarding Ukraine, particularly with military aid. What do you think the opportunity is, or the pressure should be with China in terms of trying to get some sort of resolution in Ukraine?
Well, first and foremost, it's a sign of how desperate and weak Putin is right now. I mean, he obviously has had a lot of time to plan this invasion, and only 3.5 weeks in, he has to go begging to the Chinese to resupply, because he frankly thought this invasion would be done in 10 to 14 days. And in fact, he's now going to be in what is likely to be a prolonged multi-month or multi-year conflict. Listen, we're going to need to make clear, as we have to the Chinese, that there will be consequences if they proactively take the Russian side. And we obviously have a ton of leverage over China. Their economy is more integrated into the U.S. economy than the Russian economy is. And those messages, I know, are being delivered right now to the Chinese.
Senator Murphy, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.